Yo, what's up, YouTube? It's Richawd back with another video. It's a couple things I want to touch on in this video. It's going to be multi-layered. Um, I want to talk about how, it's a lot of job postings, but not a lot of jobs hiring, what I think that's about. And I want to talk about women again. So, it's been a lot of talk about how the economy and the job market is kind of cooked right now and nobody's really hiring. I would say this. I think being unemployed, you're at a real disadvantage. A lot of these jobs, I think this is just observation. I don't have any, solid information on it or any sources or anything. Just from observation and, me talking to people and, watching certain videos of people, talking about how they've put out job applications and haven't had, any luck with that. A lot of them either previously quit a job or got laid off or, things of that nature. I think, they're doing thorough searches or thorough investigations on people who they're hiring. I think we're moving into a time where, your past will really kind of hunt you a little bit, if that makes any sense. And they're making it a lot harder to get full-time positions. The majority of jobs these days, they don't off the back offer a full-time position, because if you off the back offer a full-time position, it is by law that you must give full-time workers certain benefits, And what ends up happening is a lot of these companies have been losing money to job hoppers, There was a time where getting a job was very easy. I can attest to this, I wasn't sure if it was because of the state I lived in or where I lived, but back when I was out in California, man, it was like nothing for me to find any old little job, and a decent job at that, something that I don't just hate. There's no perfect job out there. Every job is going to be mentally draining and, it's going to put some strain on your mind and your body. But, overall comfortable environment, like me personally, a suitable work environment for me, I like a balanced work environment. I don't want to just work somewhere with just all men, so I typically like jobs where they have a female staff. It kind of lightens the mood a little bit, gives you a little eye candy while you're at the job. So I typically go for jobs like, warehouses, typically warehouses, they have a decent amount of women in there. You can look into things like restaurant jobs. They usually have decent amount of women. Hospital jobs, especially hospital jobs have a good amount of women working there. That's something that motivates me. I don't know about you guys, but it just kind of helps the day go by a little better when you got a little eye candy to look forward to, But, a lot of these jobs, man, they're making it very difficult for people to get full-time positions or people to get jobs at all. And it's because they're trying to cut back on, the money and the losses that they have taken. A lot of these companies, they took a great loss, during the Great Resignation, around the 2020, 2021 period, maybe I'll say from about 2020 to about 2022, a lot of people was resigning from their jobs. I was a part of that. I resigned from a job that I've been working at for 2 years. It was a hospital that I used to work at, and I ended up leaving, And what I would say is, be cautious of your resume, right? Don't have any jobs on your resume where you may not have ended on good terms. You know what I'm saying? Because I believe these people are contacting these jobs. They're contacting your previous employers and they're trying to get a gauge of what type of worker you are. And if you can be a good worker, you can be a great worker, but say you end it on bad terms. If they call your previous job, I promise you that job is not going to uphold, all the hard work you put in. All they're going to talk about is how things ended, because that's what's fresh in their mind. People usually, it's just human nature. We usually tie ourselves to negativity, and we remember negativity a little more than we remember positivity. I don't know why it is that way. Maybe it's a traumatic thing. I don't know, but that's just how it is. And these jobs, these hiring managers, these supervisors who, You know, a lot of these jobs, before they hire you, do go contact. They have people on the payroll, and that's their job, you know, to investigate the people that they're hiring to try to hire the best candidates. So what I will say is, man, if you are at a job and you may hate that job, be mindful of how you leave that job. You know, this is something that I learned the hard way. You know, being young, you know, it's easy to kind of just say F it if you really don't got any responsibilities, if you don't have any kids or anything, or if you're not out paying rent. So, you know, it's a lot of people that were able to just say F it, you know, and just leave a job, you know, and they're really trying to, you know, make it harder for these type of people to get another job. You know, these things will follow you. So that's why I say, like, on your resume, bro, like, even if you was working at a job 2, 3, 4 years, you know, and things were going well there, but say over a period of time, something happened, you know, you may stop, you may have had a coworker you didn't get along with, or a manager or something, whatever, you know, and things didn't end in a suitable way at that job. I think it'll be in your best interest to not provide that job in your resume. You know, put something else on there. Put you were a model. Put you worked for Uber. You worked for DoorDash. You know, these are things where they can't call a supervisor. They can't call a manager. You work for yourself. Say you worked for yourself. Like I said, this is just in your best interest. You know, it's better to not mention these jobs and say, like, hey, you worked for a private contracting company, whatever, whoop the bam. You got to think outside the box, bro, because I promise you this. If you put your previous employer, or you have previous employers on your resume, and you did not end on good terms. Now, if you ended on good terms, put it on your resume, because if they call that employer, they should have nothing but good things to say about you. But if you didn't end on good terms, or if you know you was there BSing around, don't put that on your resume. This is something my dumb self did. You know, I put certain jobs on my resume where things didn't end on good terms, and I'm pretty sure that made it very difficult for me during my job search. So if you're on the job search and you're unemployed, you know, you got to get crafty, bro, because these people are making it difficult for, you know, they're making it more difficult to get these jobs. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's just something that I've noticed, you know. So what I would say about that, man, is just, you know, be mindful of your resumes. I'm not saying to lie, but you may have to just tell some white lies, you know. I mean, technically you're not lying if you didn't put a job on there, you know. Just food for thought. You don't got to do it. I'm just telling you, if you do put a job on there and you ended on bad terms, or you had bad attendance, whatever, that's going to hunt you, bro, because these hiring managers and things of that nature, they communicate, they talk, and they're going to call the hiring manager of the job that you put on the resume. And 9 times out of 10, if you ended on bad terms, they're not going to have good things to say about you. Like I said, it may not seem fair. You may be like, well, I was one of their better workers. Things just didn't end well. But for the most part, I was a good worker. Hiring manager not going to remember that, bro. All they're going to remember is how things ended with you, bro. And that's all they're going to be telling people about. You can be the hardest. You could have been one of the hardest working people in there. But your last few weeks or your last few months there, you had attendance problems or whatever. They don't care what you were going through, any family issues. They don't care about any of that. You know, they're not going to mention like, oh, he was going through something in his family and started missing days. Nope. They're just going to say, no, his attendance wasn't good. You know, no context, no details, no nothing. They're just going to make it seem like you just didn't care, you know. And I'm pretty sure that's what certain jobs made it. Maybe Amazon in particular. I'm not saying this for sure, but, you know, I'm pretty sure when certain jobs, because I did have that on my resume for a minute, and I wasn't getting no type of jobs when I had Amazon on my resume, you know. And luckily I got the job I had now when I had Amazon on my resume. And I noticed that they continue to say, like, make sure your attendance is good. Make sure your attendance is good. And I've been here for about a month and my attendance has been great. You know, I've been on time every day. You know what I'm saying? I had one day where because of traffic, I damn near was late, but I made it within the 5-minute grace period. So I wasn't late. So, you know, I've been good, man. You know, by the grace of God, things will continue to go good. I'm not going to lie. I highly dislike the job. It's not enjoyable at all. You know, it's not the type of environment I want to be in. It's like, you know, you're mostly working around men. You know what I'm saying? It's a couple females on the job, but, you know, I don't expect them to stick around too long. I mean, I don't think this is the type of work for a female, honestly, you know. And if you do give a female a position at this job, I think they should be doing like certain roles, you know what I'm saying? And the men should be doing all the heavy lifting, you know. Some people may say, oh, that's sexist. We're all equal. We're all okay. Well, you go lift them 50, 100-pound damn boxes then. You know what I'm saying? I promise you're going to be complaining. I promise you're going to be over there breaking nails and all type of shit, contemplating life. But, yeah, that's just my whole spiel on this whole job search, man. I think, you know, we just got to be more professional at our jobs. I think they're creating job files that a lot of us don't know about. It's a lot of job files being made on us. Your past will hunt you. So keep that in mind if you're at a job and it's driving you crazy or you're miserable and you just want to start acting unprofessional because, you know, you don't like the job. You want to start pulling a Jimmy Butler and, you know, force your way out. Like, you know, not everybody's Jimmy Butler, bro. Like some people can just say F their job and get me to a better job or I'm not going to work. But the majority of people, that type of tactic not going to work. Like, if you start acting unprofessional, bro, that's going to follow you and that's going to make other employers hesitant to hire you, you know? So just keep that in mind, bro. Stay professional at your job, no matter if you like it or you don't like it. Like I said, the job I'm at right now, I dislike it, but I've been professional. You know, I come in, I do my job, and I do it to the best of my ability. I want to, you know, I would say I'm one of their best workers already. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not just saying that to say it. Like, you know, I don't really got to toot my horn, bro, but, you know, you get treated or you get more responsibilities put on you when you're a good worker. And I would just say that I have a certain amount of responsibilities and expectations. Like I'm expected to always be on time. I'm expected to always do whatever they need me to do. And I just do it, bro. I don't complain, whatever. I just do it, bro. You know? That's one thing I've learned from, you know, previous jobs, you know, and I'm way more mature of a worker now, you know. Younger Richawd, you know, like I said, I wouldn't have lasted at this job this long, bro, because it's very old school. It's very, you know, take it or leave it. You know, there's, you know, you just got to deal with it. Like it's one of those type of environments, bro. Like they're not catering to your emotions or your feelings, or they're not trying to make it easier for you. Like this is the job. This is what you got to do. Go do it. If you don't want to do it, good riddance. We'll find somebody else to do it. Like old school type of environment, you know. Supervisor, the main supervisor, old school type of supervisor, like come in and work. No BSing around, no chit chatting, no dangling, no playing with your boss, like work. No extended bathroom breaks, work. You're here to work. If you're not here to work, go home, you know, go home. You feel me? And I would say it's matured me and it's made me stronger, because when I started, I was struggling. My body was sore, all type of stuff. But, you know, I just had to figure out a way like, all right, how am I going to get through this? You know, so I started working out more. I started doing my calisthenics more. So now I don't even get sore after work anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty light to me now. When I first started, I ain't gonna lie, I was struggling, you know, because, you know, I hadn't been like, no, I work out, but I wasn't working out like around the clock like I would usually do, like if I was keeping myself in shape. So, you know, now I've just been working out more around the clock. So when I do go to work, you know, I'm physically, it's not even just about being physically able to lift all the things that we have to lift. It's about stamina. You know, it's a lot of stamina that is required in this job. You're on your feet constantly and you're constantly moving things. So I was strong enough, you know, the first week, I was strong enough to move everything. I just didn't quite have the stamina starting off. Like it was really wearing on me. But now it's to the point to where it doesn't wear on me anymore. I built my stamina up a little bit from working here, you know, and, yeah, like I said, I'm just staying professional. You know, I'm grateful to have a job, even though it's not a job that I enjoy. It's not a job that pays well. It's not a job that has good hours, you know, but, you know, I'm staying professional about it. This morning, I just put out some applications, you know, hopefully I hear back from some of these jobs within the next week. Like I'm actively looking for something better. You know what I'm saying? Like this job wouldn't be so terrible if it paid more and had more hours. You know what I'm saying? Like, then it would be a little more worth it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's already a laborious job. So you feel me? But like I said, I'm not really going to complain too much. It's keeping things afloat right now. You know, I'm in a better state this time of month than I was around this time of month last month when I didn't have a job or whatever, you know. And I'm going to close the video out on one point. I had somebody in my comment section saying that I was worldly, or I had a worldly view for saying that, a woman completes a man's life. And a man was just saying that you shouldn't need a woman to complete your life. You should just need God. And I just wanted to touch on that. I responded to the comment, but I just wanted to touch on that in the video because I've been having, people here and there say that, oh, I've changed. My views have become more worldly. Babylon got your soul. Like, all this BS for me just stating the obvious, bro. Like I said, I'm one that lives in reality. Like, I believe in God. I follow the Bible, but I also follow reality, bro. It's like certain things, bro, we just got to call a spade and be like, bro, this is just how it is now. Like, yeah, it was supposed to be this way. God wants it to be this way, but it's not this way. So how are we going to adapt? How are we going to adapt, bro? You feel me? Because I'll be damned if I just sit around here starving, trying to live an overly righteous life. Like, no, that's not going to happen. But I just wanted to touch on this real quick. No, it's not going to be long-winded. I'm trying to have this video 20 minutes or less. Bro, there's nothing worldly about a woman completing your life, bro. I know it's a lot of self-improvement, MGTOW, no-fap, semen retention, and those things aren't terrible. There's a place for it. I'm always say there's a place for it, There's certain guys, bro, you're just not in a position where you're highly desired, it doesn't always seem fair, but life isn't fair. You just got to accept that some guys it's easier for them. Some guys, they don't have to do self-improvement. Some guys, they do the bare minimum, and genetically they're just aesthetically pleasing enough to where women just throw themselves at them because genetically they have dominant genetics, and females will always be attracted to dominant alpha genetics. That's just what it is. And some people, their genetics aren't as dominant, aren't as alpha, so it's harder for you. It's not as easy for you. It may not seem fair. It may piss you off. It may make you want to unalive yourself, but it is what it is. And you just got to be a strong soldier and take it, man. Roll with the punches. That's just what it is, A lot of these women, they're attracted to degenerates. They're attracted to the fast life. They're attracted to things that, you would need money to acquire, But here's the thing, brother, because I know it's a lot of guys out here defeated, feeling like they have no chance. All the women are just chasing after the top percenters, or, the genetically dominant men, the tall men, the strong men, the men good in bed. Like, that's what women want, bro. And I'm not mad at women for wanting that. I'm really not. That's just their nature. They're going to go after dominant genes. They're going to go after what they feel may protect them. A lot of women these days are programmed. They don't feel like the average everyday good guy is going to protect them. They feel like the average everyday good guy, if he runs across a thug, he's going to fold and he's going to shrivel up. Some everyday average dudes may fold up like that. But there's also some everyday average dudes that won't. There's also some everyday average dudes that'll take out a thug or whatever. But these women don't trust everyday average men a lot, good guys, And it's kind of hardwired in a female's nature to want a bad boy. That's why, a woman biblically had to be moderated and controlled. You know what I'm saying? There was a time where women, they were married away. The father would find a suitable man to marry the daughter away. There was a time where the woman wasn't given a right to choose. And I would say that what's going on right now gives validity to that period. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of women just don't quite know what they want, or they don't quite know what's best for them, and Pookie may seem like Pookie or the Pookie or the hood or the thug archetype, whatever, the tatted dude, the guy who doesn't care, the bad boy, as they call him, may not be what's best for them, but that's just what they want. That's just, that is not what they need, but it's what they want. And a lot of times, women in their nature, they're going to go after what they want. Phone finna die. They're going to go after what they want before they go after what they need. It's just, sometimes they can't really help it, And especially if they wasn't raised in a strong, positive environment with a good example in the mother and a good example in the father of, how that whole thing is supposed to operate. A lot of women didn't have that guidance. Their father wasn't a role model. How it's supposed to be, little girls they're supposed to grow up and they're supposed to try to marry someone similar to their father, alpha, in control, handling business, this, that, and the third. And a lot of them, they don't know what that is. They may either not have a good enough example of it. They may resent their dad or not want anything like their dad, or so it's a lot of women just out here lost, because of the broken family structures. And just people being broken and lost spiritually. So that's just the times we're living in, bro. I know it's a difficult time. It is. It's a very difficult time for a lot of men dating, a lot of men looking for mates. And, if you're the type of guy, you want something serious, you want a girl that's yours and not everybody's. And, you don't want to just be out here in the streets sharing women. It's, certain guys, that's the life they want to live. They want to live that bachelor's life. They don't want nothing serious. They don't want children, they don't want families, A lot of people don't want families anymore, They just want to party and have fun. And, if they slip up, go down to the clinic and get that plan B. That's a lot of people's motives. That's how a lot of people are moving now, And if you're the type of guy who wants something old school, something traditional, you want a wife, and you want that to be your wife, and you don't want to have to worry about her sneaking off with the plumber or sneaking off with the local SoundCloud rapper. Like, it's very difficult. It's a very anxiety infused time because a lot of men can't rest well at night. When their woman is at work, they don't know what their woman is doing. You know what I'm saying? So it's difficult. It's difficult. And then a lot of guys, they don't even have a woman to give them anxiety. You know what I'm saying? They're just kind of out here dangling in the wind. So the point I want to make is, for that person that said it's worldly for me to say that a woman should be your priority, I disagree. I think it's godly, to want a woman to be, or to have a woman to be a priority of your life, because we was put here to be fruitful and to multiply, man. And last time I checked, you can't multiply without a woman. A woman can't multiply without a man. A man can't multiply without a woman. So shouldn't a woman be a priority? Last time I checked, Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, I believe it said man should not be alone. So I would create you a helpmeet. Why would the Most High prioritize creating a man to help me if a woman shouldn't be a priority in a man's life? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But so that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see how you can call yourself a man of God, but you're not trying to figure this whole thing out with a woman. You're not trying to get a woman or start a family, or at least try to. How can you call yourself a man? I'm sorry, just going through this whole life, living for yourself, going your own way your whole life. That's miserable to me, man. Call me worldly if you want to. That's a miserable life. Like I said, it can be a period, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years where you're just focused on yourself and getting yourself in order. But your entire life, your entire life, like, what are you? I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Like, I want to get myself in a position and be making money and be successful so I can attract a quality woman, bro. Like, I mean, come on, man. It's not rocket science. Why do you think so many dudes want to be thugs? Because they know women flock to thugs, bro. Why do you think so many men are trying to get their life in order and get money? Because they know women flock to men that have their life in order and have money. The majority of what we do is for women, bro. We can try to act like it's not, bro. We can, like I said, maybe some of you guys aren't wired the way I'm wired. The way I'm wired, I wake up every day like this, if you know what I mean. I wake up every day aroused and ready, so, woman is on my mind from the start of my day to the end of my day. Typically at the end of my day, I'm ready, so they say you're horniest at night, so a woman is always going to be my priority, I'm not saying God isn't first and this, that, and the third, but a woman, she's up there on that totem pole. She's top 3. It's God, it's myself, and then it's a woman, bro. Period. So that's just my response to that, man. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and leave the video right there. Those are just 2 things I just kind of wanted to touch on. The whole job market thing, it could be a lot of reasons why you're struggling to get a job. Maybe you're not making the right connections. Maybe you don't know the right people. That's a lot of these jobs, especially these corporate jobs and these high ranking corporate jobs, you know, you got to build a name for yourself somewhere, man. You have to have somebody that will vouch for you, you know. And if you don't have that, you know, you have to have at least a good work record or a good track record. And if you don't have neither of the two, it's going to be very difficult for you. You know, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to work some job that's undesirable just to build your resume up. You know, a lot of people, your resume isn't appealing. You know, these hiring agencies at these jobs, these hiring managers at these jobs, these operation managers at these jobs, they're seeing your applications and they're going through your resumes and they're not impressed, you know. They're doing background checks on you and they're calling your old employers, and your old employers don't have good things to say about you. I think that's the issue right now. You know, while a lot of people, you know, are applying for jobs, but those jobs aren't getting back. I feel like a lot of these jobs, you know, they're looking at that resume, they're looking at certain things, and, you know, they're making quick decisions, you know. So in the meantime, if you don't have a job, you're probably going to have to get some job you don't want. I mean, McDonald's is hiring, you know, a lot of jobs are hiring. You know, it may not be the job you want, may not be the most desirable job, but they're hiring. They pay, you know, so you're just going to have to deal with that type of environment and, you know, work your way up to a better environment, man. And I would say this, a job application looks a lot better when you're currently working a job than if you're unemployed, you know. I think they will rather get the employee who has a job and is just seeking a better job than the employee that doesn't have a job. Because, you know, it's like the dating market, you know. As eerie as this may sound, a lot of women, they rather go after the dude that has a girl than the dude that doesn't have a girl. Because if you have a girl, that shows that, you know, you're qualified. If you don't have a girl, that shows that you have red flags. You may not be qualified. You know, you may have some problems. So it's the same with the job force. If you have a job and you're just looking for a better job, they'll probably take you. If you don't have a job and they're going to be wondering, why don't you have a job? It's just how it is, you know. So that's why it's so difficult being unemployed looking for a job, because you're seen as a red flag, you know. But that's all I got for y'all today, man. Peace and love.